Hello, Team MoDOT, to the October Lunch and Learn. As Tom shared with you, my name is Sean Tooley, Transportation Planner with the St. Louis District. In this presentation, I'll be sharing with you an overview of the practice of active transportation at the Missouri Department of Transportation. The topics I'll be covering include, first, background information about what influences MoDOT's roles and decisions. Second, example projects, whether built by MoDOT, by others on the state system, or in partnership with others. Third, the role of MoDOT as a property owner. Fourth, how MoDOT is a stakeholder. And fifth, how MoDOT is supporting change for the future of active transportation. Before we start, let me preface with that many of our communities have conducted planning for bike and pedestrian facilities and have made recommendations for MoDOT roadways. I hope this presentation helps Team MoDOT to tell its story and helps equip us as we work with local communities to live into our state long-range transportation plan goal to give Missourians better transportation choices. So let's get started with background. There we go, slides are changing. Which is what influences MoDOT's roles and decisions in active transportation. Starting with responsibilities.
Sean,
yes.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I don't see the recording running if you needed to start that.
We're at 140 recording at the moment.
Okay, apologies.
And there is a background noise. Thank you. All right, back to responsibilities. In that the types of responsibilities have evolved as the name of the agency has changed throughout the years. An example of the transportation assets over which the department has responsibility are pictured on this slide. In 1913, the Missouri Highway Department was formed. In 1980, the word transportation was added, making it the Missouri Highway and Transportation Department. In 1996, the word highway was removed, bringing us to present day as the Department of Transportation. This name change has coincided with a shift in focus to be inclusive of multimodal movement. Leadership. As MoDOT has evolved as an agency, so have perspectives about bike and pedestrian facilities and the understanding of how it fits into the organization. On this slide is a model of our role as civil servants who are stewards of public resources and entrusted to use those resources for the public good. Later, I'll share with you an anecdote about how leadership has influenced the St. Louis District in incorporating bike and pedestrian facilities. Champions. Internal champions help translate vision and goals into action. They identify and facilitate evolving an agency culture into new and revised practices. Pictured on this slide is an example of the process that state departments of transportation follow to develop and deliver projects. As an aside, I would wish the best of luck to any internal champion because to be one requires endurance and not losing sight of the big picture while focusing on the individual moving parts. In the past, 2 St. Louis District employees were internal champions for active transportation. Some of you may even know them by name because one, Paul Wojciechowski, is a consultant who has conducted many active transportation studies in the state of Missouri. And the other is Larry Welty, who now works for St. Louis County and has helped launch the Bike Walk Action Plan for St. Louis County that is currently underway. Even though they are former MoDOT employees, their passion for active transportation has continued. Policy. Displayed on this slide are our transportation planning partners, metropolitan planning organizations, MPOs, and regional planning RPCs, who work with MoDOT to develop and apply policy to the state. At the federal level, there have been very influential transportation acts, which include the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, for which many of us are familiar, which resulted in 41,000 miles of interstate highways. The other, and related to active transportation, is the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act of 1991, which emphasized being inclusive of other modes. This act, nicknamed ICE-T, set goals for reducing bicycle and pedestrian fatalities, and injuries and doubling their share of total trip making. These two pieces of legislation have shaped where MoDOT is today. Let's talk about guidance. Guidance from the federal government shapes how states accommodate active transportation. In 1994, the first comprehensive examination of non-motorized travel occurred. In 2000, Federal Highway issued a policy urging states to, quote, go beyond the minimum design standards, end quote, for walking and biking. On this slide are examples of guidance related to active transportation that predate the year 2000. You'll note the first bicycle guide by AASHTO came out in 1981, American Association of State Highway Transportation Officials. On the next slide, you'll note guidance that is post-2000, including the National Association of City Transportation Officials, or NACTO, guide in 2012. And on the third slide for guidance, you'll note that quite a bit has happened since NACTO published their guide in 2012, in that the Federal Highway Administration has published additional resources covering topics such as incorporating bike facilities into routine resurfacing projects, achieving multimodal networks, improving pedestrian safety at uncontrolled crossing locations such as mid-block crossings, and most recently, the Bikeway Selection Guide, which solidifies the concept of different types of bicyclists associated with the level of stress rated by bike facility type. As you may note from the years listed, that much change has happened since 2012. Demonstration projects. To put this guidance into practice, Federal Highway has funded example projects with programs many of us are familiar with, such as the Safe Transportation for Every Pedestrian, STEP, and Everyday Counts, EDC. These projects provide states with examples to replicate and has resulted in much of the change to guidance and supporting information has been published since 2012. More on examples of STEP later in this presentation. Funding. Federal funding for bicycle and pedestrian research and projects has grown in successive waves with a dramatic increase in 2009 to the 2015 timeframe. Bicycle and pedestrian facilities have been incorporated into federal funding categories such as infra and build. Pictured are examples in Missouri of grant recipients, though not related to MoDOT, are great examples to share. On the left, the city of Springfield, Missouri received a 2019 build grant for a protected bike facility and enhanced sidewalks on Grant Avenue from Bass Pro headquarters on the south connecting north to the Fastnight Greenway, the Jordan Creek Greenway, and the Fort Scott Greenway. On the right, in 2014, a build grant was awarded for the Cortex Metrolink station and first segment of the now renamed Brickline Greenway in central St. Louis City. In 2020, MoDOT applied for an INFRA grant for I-270 in northern St. Louis County, which included extending shared use paths along the outer road by 3 miles to connect to the North Riverfront Trail with Great Rivers Greenway. Although the grant was not awarded, the inclusion of bicycle and pedestrian facilities demonstrates the growing importance of active transportation to the Missouri Department of Transportation. Implementation. MPOs and RPCs, as referenced earlier, are partners with MoDOT in transportation planning decisions, and they commit their resources to active transportation. Through vision setting and planning activities, such as the Regional Long-Range Transportation Plan, policies, and area-specific plans, MPOs and RPCs can influence the inclusion of active transportation projects on the MoDOT system in their respective areas. There is more on this later in the section on MoDOT as a stakeholder. Also about implementation, to date, there have been a variety of pathways towards implementation or accommodation of bicycle and pedestrian facilities. Examples include environmental commitments, as shown on this slide, advocacy by public or advocacy groups, conducting safety assessments, and partnership, such as through MoDOT's cost share program. However, there are challenges. MoDOT has encountered challenges to bicycle and pedestrian inclusion, such as what standard to apply. As many of you may know, MoDOT follows AASHTO guidance, whereas cities and counties are more flexible when using the NACTO guidance. Other examples of influencing factors include right-of-way environmental impacts, among many others. These challenges result in trade-offs and balancing priorities and commitments. And I can't emphasize this part enough, again, about trade-offs and balancing those priorities and commitments. Pictured on this slide is a 3.8-mile bike and pedestrian trail connecting on the west the Katy Trail in St. Charles County to Creve Coeur Park on the east. This was built by MoDOT as an environmental commitment from the Page Avenue Extension Environmental Impact Statement. Now the roadway is known as Route 364, and this project was finished in 2003. In summary, for background information, what influences MoDOT's roles and decisions in active transportation is related directly to its responsibilities and focus, the role of its leaders, the pursuit by internal champions, the expectations set by policies, the flexibility of guidance, learning from demonstration projects, how much funding is available, addressing project-specific challenges, and working towards implementation, especially in partnership with other governments. Next, I will share with you MoDOT as a builder. And this is fun because we get to see pictures. Since 2000, more than 8 major river bridges, defined as at least 1,000 feet in length, across the Missouri River have been rebuilt or retrofitted. 3 additional major river bridges are currently being retrofitted or rebuilt. Let's take a look at them. Pictured at top left is the Choteau Bridge carrying Route 269 in the Kansas City district. Pictured at top right is the Daniel Boone Bridge carrying Interstate 64 in the St. Louis area. Pictured bottom left is the Jefferson City Bridge carrying routes 63 and 54 in the Central District. By the way, this one was a retrofit. Pictured at bottom right is the Boone's Lick Bridge carrying Route 87 in Boonesville in the Central District. This bridge now carries the Katy Trail over the Missouri River too. Pictured at top left is the Heart of America Bridge carrying Route 9 in the Kansas City area. Pictured at top right is the Veterans Memorial Bridge carrying Route 364 in the St. Louis area. Pictured at bottom left is the Christopher S. Bond Bridge in Herman carrying Route 19 in the Central District. Pictured at bottom right is the Discovery Bridge carrying Route 370 in the St. Louis area. Also about this bridge, a local government successfully attracted federal funds to retrofit the bridge with movable barriers recently, which added a bicycle and pedestrian facility where bicyclists were already using the shoulder. Moving on, although not a major river bridge, MoDOT rebuilt bridges and roadway network that separates downtown St. Louis from the Gateway Arch National Park. This now includes a land bridge, otherwise known as a freeway cap, across Interstate 44 to allow for uninterrupted movement on foot, pedal, scooter, and other non-vehicular modes. This project was also built with a build grant. Several other major river bridges are anticipated to be completed soon with active transportation facilities if they are not already by the time you're tuning into this presentation. They are, pictured at top, is Route 47 over the Missouri River connecting Washington, Missouri on the south to the Katy Trail in Warren County on the north. At present, river levels have delayed the ability to add the final bike and pedestrian facility components to provide that connection. Stay tuned as river levels recede to allow for final implementation. Pictured at bottom is Interstate 44, just west of Interstate 270, over the Merrimack River, where a separate bicycle and pedestrian bridge is being added in cooperation between MoDOT and Great Rivers Greenway in the St. Louis area. It will connect Kirkwood and Sunset Hills on the east to the Merrimack Greenway in Fenton on the west. On the next slide, active transportation facilities have been added by MoDOT and local governments with the help of underpasses, tunnels, and non-major bridges. Picture at top in the Southwest District includes a bridge carrying Route 13, Kansas Expressway, over Interstate 44 in Springfield, Missouri. By the way, this is the first diverging diamond in the nation. Pictured at bottom left is yours truly in the St. Louis District in the foreground of a bicycle and pedestrian only bridge over Interstate 64 near Kings Highway with the Barnes Jewish Children's Hospital complex employing 15,000 people in the background. Pictured at bottom right again is yours truly, this time in front of a bike and pedestrian only tunnel here in State 64 near the Science Center in St. Louis. Moving on to Columbia, Missouri in the Central District. Pictured at the top is Route 163, Providence Road over Interstate 70. Pictured at bottom is Route 740, Stadium Boulevard, also a diverging diamond over Interstate 70. Continuing on to the next slide, still in Columbia, is pictured atop a path through the underpass for Route 763, Rangeline Street under Interstate 70. Pictured at bottom is a path through the underpass for Business Loop 70 under Interstate 70. Moving on, away from Columbia to St. Robert, Missouri in Pulaski County, still in the Central District. Pictured is a bicycle and pedestrian only bridge alongside Route Y over Interstate 44. This next slide features the Kansas City area, where MoDOT has partnered with local governments to build a tunnel under Interstate 49 in the city of Belton, which is pictured at bottom right. Pictured at top left is a bike and pedestrian bridge over Interstate 435 at Bannister Road. Pictured at top right is the Colburn Road Bridge over Interstate 470 near the district office. Not pictured is the Fairfax Bridge carrying US 69 over the Missouri River, which was completed with a multi-use path. Let's shift gears to arterial corridors. Since 2000, MoDOT has worked with local governments on repurposing roadways to accommodate active transportation or add new. Examples include road diets, traffic calming, adding sidewalks, adding bike lanes, adding unsignalized mid-block crossings, and implementing other pedestrian safety countermeasures. One recently implemented project added a total of 14 rectangular rapid flashing beacons at mid-block crossings on Route D, Page, northern St. Louis City, and Route 100, Manchester, also known as Choteau, in central St. Louis City. Pictured at top left is Route 30, Gravois, which was in some sections a 6 to 5 lane conversion, in other sections a 4 to 3 lane conversion in the St. Louis area. Pictured at top right is Route 100, Manchester. In this section, it was a 4 to 3 lane conversion. Pictured at bottom left in the Central District is a pedestrian hybrid beacon added to Route 763, College Avenue, for University of Missouri, Mizzou, students to safely access the university from surrounding residential areas. Pictured bottom right is Route 115, Natural Bridge, in northern St. Louis County, which involved a 4 to 3 lane conversion in the Normandy, University of Missouri, St. Louis area. The improvements include streetscape lighting, trees, structured mid-block crossings, and visually protected bike lanes. Now moving to the Southwest District, starting with the Springfield area. Pictured at top and bottom left is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon that was added on Loop 44, Business 65, locally known as Glenstone Avenue. Pictured at bottom right, bike lanes were added to Route 7 in Warsaw from Truman Dam Road to Route 65. In the future, the Buckle-Neal Bridge is anticipated to also have an active transportation facility too. On this slide is an artist's rendering of what the facility may become, such as a green cycle track. The rebuilt roadway and bridge extends from the River Market neighborhood north of the Central Business District and connects north to the downtown airport. This neighborhood was recently designated as a great place by the Missouri chapter of the American Planning Association and was a 2020 grant recipient for extending the Kansas City streetcar into the neighborhood. Further north, but not by far, is a recently completed road diet project on Armour Boulevard in North Kansas City, which may be a contender for Great Place designation in the future. The point of the discussion for this in Kansas City is that this bridge will be a connector between neighborhoods that are redeveloping and have more bike and pedestrian users coming soon. Also coming soon will be over 10 miles of shared use path being added in northern St. Louis County along Interstate 270. This is part of a larger reconstruction project and will include several wider crossings on bridges to better accommodate walkers and cyclists on new bridges. In summary, active transportation projects have been built by MoDOT, by others, and in partnership with others on the state system, and they can happen in the future. So let's explore MoDOT as a property owner. As a property owner, MoDOT is able to partner with organizations who want to make use of MoDOT right-of-way for adding active transportation facilities. To do so requires a variety of legal agreements. Often the agreement is needed associated with the funding source, whether it is a Transportation Alternative Program, TAP, Surface Transportation Program, STPS, Congestion Mitigation or Quality, CMAQ, or MoDOT's funding opportunities through cost share or cost apportionment. Another agreement may be needed for how bicycle and pedestrian facilities interact with MoDOT right-of-way, whether they are a trail license agreement, a sidewalk maintenance agreement, or an airspace agreement. Picture at top left is Route AC in the Northwest District, where a shared use path has been added in eastern St. Joseph, Missouri, through a trail license agreement. Picture at very top right is Route H in the Southeast District in Farmington, where a rectangular rapid flashing beacon was added in a residential area. This involved a TAP funding agreement. Picture at top right and bottom right is Route 163 in Columbia, where an unsignalized mid-block crossing is being added in the future to provide a safe crossing for students accessing Hickman High School from residential areas on the west. This involved a sidewalk maintenance agreement. Picture at bottom left is Route 152 in Kansas City area, where a shared use path was added within the highway right-of-way in a new suburban area. This also involved a sidewalk maintenance agreement. On the next slide, picture at top left is a shared use path that was added within the highway right-of-way recently along Interstate 55, which connects the River de Pere Greenway in St. Louis City to the Grants Trail Gravois Greenway in southern St. Louis County. Also built by Great Rivers Greenway is pictured at bottom right, the Centennial Greenway crossing over a series of bridges within highway right-of-way in St. Charles County for routes 364 and 94, where the two roadways converge. The takeaway from MoDOT as a property owner is that active transportation facilities have been implemented and can be implemented MoDOT right-of-way where feasible and practical. MoDOT as a stakeholder. MoDOT is a participant in local, county, and regional committees and plans for active transportation. Some are policy focused, such as an advisory committee to a metropolitan plan organization, whether it's East West Gateway, Mid-America Regional Council, or Ozarks for Transportation Organization in Springfield. MoDOT works with local organizations towards implementation, such as cities, counties, and off-street bike facility organizations. For cities, this includes the city of St. Louis, the city of Springfield. For counties, think St. Louis County and McDonald County. And for off-street organizations, think Ozark Greenways and Great Rivers Greenways organizations. MoDOT is represented by planners or district planning managers focused on policy, planning, and process, or by area engineers and traffic engineers focused more on the details associated with implementation of those facilities and where they might encounter environmental, maintenance, right-of-way, or construction constraints. So let's take a look at some of those plans. In the Kansas City district, picture on this slide, were three planning documents: the Regional Bikeway Plan and Regional Pedestrian Policy on the left and the middle, with Mid-America Regional Council, and the Bike KC Master Plan for the city of Kansas City on the right. In the St. Louis district was the Regional Bicycling and Walking Transportation Plan, published in 2005. It was succeeded by the Gateway Bike Plan in 2012, and most recently, in 2019, the Action Plan for Walking and Biking for St. Louis County is underway. These plans represent an evolution of bicycle planning that has shifted from focusing on high-stress facilities, think visually protected facility, to low-stress, which would be protected with some kind of vertical and permanent addition components. Also, there is renewed interest in pedestrian planning thanks to the St. Louis County Action Plan, which adds new topics to active transportation planning, which are safety corridors, filling in sidewalk gap corridors, and pedestrian experience corridors. By the way, This is where we return to that anecdote about how leadership matters. In response to the Gateway Bike Plan 2012, the then district engineer, Ed Hasinger, who is now our chief engineer for all of MoDOT, emphasized the need for MoDOT to implement the network recommendations where able. An example is when replacing a bridge, the Gateway Bike Plan is used to develop the scope by MoDOT and consider adding or expanding bike elements. As mentioned in the picture slides, several road diets have implemented the Gateway Bike Plan network recommendations with the help of striping. His leadership has set the tone for ensuring implementation by MoDOT St. Louis by succeeding district engineers. Southwest District. Picture are two of the three bicycle and pedestrian plans that have happened in very recent years. The first is the Bike and Pedestrian Trail Investment Study by Ozarks Transportation Organization. The second is the Bicycle and Pedestrian Transportation Plan for the Joplin Area Transportation Study Organization, the MPO in the Joplin area. However, not pictures the third plan, which is the McDonald County Plan between the Truman Coordinating Council, RPC, and Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission. On this slide is a list of committees in which MoDOT is a participant. Both this list for committees and the next one listing plans, although they are not exhaustive, they demonstrate how the agency is involved throughout the state in bicycle and pedestrian planning on the front end. On this slide, demonstrates MoDOT as a stakeholder through plans to lead in partnership and cooperate in funding where active transportation can become a reality. I cannot speak for other MoDOT districts, but the Gateway Bike Plan has made a big difference in the St. Louis district, in addition, if not the expansion of active transportation facilities. So let's move on to where MoDOT is supporting change for the future. Starting with the Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan. The initiation of the Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan effort started when MoDOT St. Louis was raising the shoulder along US 67, Lindbergh, changing it from an at-grade shoulder to a mountable curb. And the local organization for persons with disabilities, advocacy organization named Paraquad, identified that these improvements would not be compliant with 1990 standards for ADA. As a result, MoDOT has committed to upgrading all existing sidewalk and existing sidewalk ramps to ADA 1990 standards. Since 2008, MoDOT has invested nearly $68.5 million towards the completion of the transition plan. The districts have projected to invest over $133 million toward the remainder of the ADA facility improvements over the next 5 years in the STIP, the Statewide Transportation Improvement Program. Also, STEP workshops. Returning back to the discussion of STEP. In recent years, MoDOT has hosted several safe transportation for every pedestrian STEP workshops. We were doing about 2 per year prior to the COVID pandemic. Local agencies like metropolitan organizations have also held workshops. East West Gateway hosted a workshop in spring 2019. The Mid-America Regional Council in Kansas City is planning to host STEP workshops in the future if they haven't happened already. Learn more about the Spectacular 7 displayed on this screen at those workshops. I really do encourage us at Team MoDOT to participate. On this slide is a concept for changing Woodson Road, located in Woodson Terrace, which is a municipality with around 4,000 residents located south of St. Louis Lambert International Airport. After sponsoring a STEP workshop where participants examine application of the Spectacular 7 to Woodson Road, the municipality hired a consultant who developed a conceptual plan to act on the road diet concepts explored in the STEP workshop. This MoDOT roadway is now advancing further in design towards a proposal that can compete for funding and transform Woodson Road to be a safer one and be usable for all ages and abilities. Personally, I think this is an exemplar of the STEP workshop, and the municipality turned the workshop into a firm proposal on its way to becoming a reality. Lastly, countermeasure tool. Pedestrians are vulnerable roadway users in our focus area of the Missouri Strategic Highway Safety Plan. Missouri experiences approximately 100 pedestrian fatalities each year. About 2/3 occur on the state system and 1/3 on the local system. MoDOT is working with local stakeholders to develop guidance for deploying pedestrian countermeasures systemically, known as MOSCIPs, MOSIPS, Missouri Systemic Countermeasures to Improve Pedestrian Safety. This effort builds upon the findings from Federal Highway's Guide for Improving Pedestrian Safety at Uncontrolled Crossing Locations, which came out a few years ago, by incorporating intersections and pedestrian crash risk. This effort will produce a tool that can be used to assess potential value, lives saved, serious injuries reduced, by deploying a pedestrian countermeasure systemically based on risk factors. Risk factors are used in this evaluation will be derived from data currently available or obtained with minimal effort. Also happening is that the Missouri Local Technical Assistance Program, LTAP, recently hired a safety circuit rider who serves as a liaison to assist with the local road safety measures, including pedestrian safety improvements. Through the ADA Transition Plan, sponsoring STEP workshops, and through the development of the pedestrian countermeasures and LTAP assistance, the Missouri Department of Transportation is working towards the future of active transportation. To summarize, in this presentation, I have shared an overview of MoDOT's roles in active transportation with background information that shapes and refines the agency's participation. Examples of projects that have been built by the agency in partnership with others or by others on the state system. And lastly, how MoDOT is a property owner or a stakeholder and working towards the future of active transportation in the state. On this slide are 5 main takeaways from this presentation, which lead to real change in making active transportation facilities happen, whether by MoDOT directly, in partnership with others, or by others on the state system. Those 5 P's are: P for perspective, which includes advocacy, education, and understanding. Some would say this is the most important because it sets or resets the values of individuals that helps or hinders collective action. P for planning, which is focused on policy, process, studies, and conducting analysis on the front end, where projects are fully scoped, before projects are fully scoped and fully developed. P for political support, which is fostering ownership and buy-in that leads to support from people in positions of decision-making authority. P for practice, training such as through the STEP workshops, experience as demonstrated with the list of example projects, and guidance from AASHTO, NACTO, Federal Highway, and others who give interpretation as to how to put active transportation facilities into practice. And lastly, for partnership, which concerns the co-creation of the planning and design process and working together to fund projects. I would like to thank you all for helping me explore the practice of active transportation at the Missouri Department of Transportation. And I hope that this presentation has helped Team MoDOT to tell our story and to better grasp how it actually has worked for MoDOT in the past. Lastly, I would like to share with you contact information, not only for myself, but also encourage anyone who's interested about active transportation to reach out to Central Office, Jenny Hosey and Sarah Kleinschmidt. I'm very appreciative of their help in helping to put together this presentation and refine it towards the statewide perspective. I also appreciate each of you joining in this presentation with me. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we can actually get into questions. Tom, would you like to rejoin?
Yeah, can you hear me, Sean?
I can.
Awesome. Thank you very much for that great presentation. And knowing this group, if we were all in our conference room there in district office, you guys would have your hands up and all sorts of great questions. So we're going to try to do this virtually. So is there anyone that's just dying to ask a question? Otherwise, I have a few planted in the crowd. So is there anyone dying that just want to ask the first question? All right. I hear somebody. Go for it.
Yeah, Tom, this is Travis. Yeah, I put it in chat. I like the structure of your presentation with MoDOT as, and it's we got to definitely remember that. We've used that MoDOT as a property owner quite a bit, because we our funding hasn't allowed us to do everything that a lot of us feel we should be doing for all modes of transportation. So being able to start those conversations early and partner with the local entities to help fund those needed improvements. That's a huge deal. So I appreciate the information you put out here, Sean, and the format. I like your format of the different roles that we play in this situation. So.
Thank you, Travis.
And Travis, just so everybody knows, what is your responsibility at MoDOT? Because I'm not sure everybody on from St. Louis knows you.
Oh, well, the state design engineers, so all of our design standards, that's part of our group. In addition to environmental, and this topic plays a big role in environmental. We don't do a lot of rebuilding of urban roadways, but I put in the chat also about Green Book 7 and what Green Book 8 is going towards as far as design standards, but also the NEPA process too. Those conversations early with the public, so we put the right facilities in for the area. So we have the conversations a lot, probably not like in the St. Louis or Kansas City area, but these mid-sized and small-sized towns is like, all right, the designers are actually evaluating with the locals. All right, where are pedestrians going in these smaller towns? Where's the school? Where's the post office? Where's the convenience store that everybody's walking to? So, I mean, those types of things really all come together whenever you're looking at your design standards you're using and your environmental process as we get into a CE2 or greater situation with these projects. So.
Thank you very much for Travis for joining. I'm glad you got some value out of it, and thanks for sharing that. So you guys know Travis is on too, so you can feel free to ask Travis questions. I'll open it up for that. But are there any questions specifically pointed to Sean and his presentation? All right, I'll turn to Denise.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
This is Eddie, Tom. So I had a question about the area team and how we're coming up with frameworks to address a lot of this multimodal and road diets as it relates to arterial management. So I just wanted to see if you can talk about that and what the St. Louis team is looking at to do as being a partner with other agencies and to move forward with addressing the multimodal concerns.
Right. So on one aspect in this presentation, we MoDOT are involved in committees at the regional, municipal, and county levels. But on the other end, I think you're asking about our arterial initiative. Is that correct? All right. I see Tom nodding his head. All right. So for that one, I'll keep it brief. Over the last 2 years, MoDOT St. Louis has been working with East West Gateway, our metropolitan planning organization in the St. Louis area, to develop a scope for a study to address a process and flexible design standards about arterial roadways. I see Michelle's joined. It involved a quick action team of Michelle when she was area engineer. It involved traffic engineers, maintenance engineers, construction, not construction, design engineer, Jeff Buller. And that group refined the scope and helped us put together a consensus over how do we provide an alternative process to the existing delivery process so that we can meet with local governments in the transportation planning phase. If you remember that slide with the big racetrack that shows all the steps that we're experienced at and go through to deliver projects, a long process, that we should probably add more to the beginning of that process before we even scope, or at the very beginning we are scoping, to examine what are those multimodal needs? Do they exist? Because many of these communities have come up with planning studies, bike and pedestrian, transit, otherwise, and how do we live into our state long-range transportation plan to give Missourians better choices? And so the goal of that arterial study, which we're still selling to senior management, is to help equip us as area teams with the ability to address all these other things besides moving trucks and single occupancy vehicles. Did I say that right, Tom and Michelle? Were there anything else you wanted to add?
In general, yes, you said it right. In general, what I believe Sean's trying to do is trying to get us to have a plan instead of react. I mean, right now we're reacting to opportunities that present themselves in some of your projects that are coming up, or we're reacting to the absolute requirement to update ADA standards, or we're reacting to partners that bring, whether it be a private developer or a partner like Great Rivers Greenway, that bring opportunities to our table. But we really don't have an active transportation management plan, and that plan also doesn't exist. So therefore we don't really have the way to say to some of our partners, this does not fit the regional plan that we've adopted. So we're doing it block by block instead of even county by county.
Right. And the goal of that is not necessarily to plan every single roadway, it's to create a process to follow so that similar to our systematic development informed consent, we have something to fall back on that demonstrates that we have been responsible and we are communicating with our local governments and the public with our process.
Sean, I do have questions coming in the chat, so feel free to enter them in the chat if any of you want, or you can chat directly to me if you don't want me. So I got one that doesn't want their name to be known, but a great question. So they're saying, is there any plans for cycling to connect Jefferson County with St. Louis County? Has Jefferson County expressed any interest?
Is our area engineer for Franklin Jefferson on with us today? I do not.
I'm on.
All right, Stephen, do you think you could take that one, please?
Well, I've not heard of any kind of plan that they're trying to tie into St. Louis County, but there might be something I don't know about.
All right. I do
Yeah.
know that
Yeah, I'm not aware of any, Stephen, in my years, and Jefferson County, just remind you guys, a lot of the trails that Sean's highlighted as Great Rivers Greenway trails in St. Louis County, St. Charles County, and St. Louis City have raised their taxes through local votes to fund Great Rivers Greenway trails. Jefferson County and Franklin County have not raised their taxes and utilized that avenue. So I'm not aware of any. So Sean, sorry to jump in.
That's fine. Yes, Franklin and Jefferson are not a part of Great Rivers Greenway, and so they're not a part of that regional bike and pedestrian plan. However, I do know that Jefferson County is considering off MoDOT right-of-way greenways along the Merrimack and Missouri rivers, or excuse me, Merrimack and Mississippi rivers. I hope that helps answer your question.
Other questions?
This is Tom Evers, Assistant DE. I don't know if this is so much a question rather than more just kind of pointing out, maybe for the good of the group. As I see many people in this lunch and learn today are involved in program delivery. I think it's important to know that obviously with our limited funds, we are spending a good chunk of our money right now in just getting ourselves to meeting ADA transition plan standards. So I think Sean pointed that out. That is something that we're doing actively. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of additional money to be able to support expansion of these efforts. So I think that's what makes the planning part so much more important, because we as an organization, whether it's planning or area engineers or whoever, as you're talking to locals, obviously our only source of funding to be able to enhance that network is a lot of times through them. I mean, they're going to be the ones that have to bring money to the table at this point in time, because we just don't have a lot of extra money to go around as we're just trying to keep up with roads and bridges. So maybe the question here, Sean, is do you have plans, or does our planning department as a whole have plans to help reach out to our local partners to basically tell them that, right now we're broke. We don't have a lot of money to do these improvements that they may want to do.
Oh, you asked the tough ones. Right. So, and that is where our whole arterial initiative study kind of comes in again, because the goal of that was to equip us to collaborate with those organizations and seek solutions together through a process. Because, right, we aren't necessarily funded for these other elements. However, some of these elements can be accomplished with simple striping, or they can be accomplished with inexpensive vertical elements like a delineator. Or we can use safety funds, such as with the rectangular, rapid flashing beacons, hybrid beacons, etc., from STEP that we can use with our funds. But right, we are very limited. So I hope that answers that question, that we work.
Now, Sean, you did highlight in your presentation the many different groups statewide, regional groups that are throughout the state that MoDOT does actively participate in. I've been in some of those meetings with you and other team members, often communicated what Tom just asked. So we are doing that. See, plan we're actively engaged, and we are communicating the reality of our state and federal funds and what they can do and what they can't do. So
I do want to add to that currently with the St. Louis County Action Plan for Biking and Walking, which is shifting from, again, high stress to low stress recommendations for bike and ped facilities, that plan is making recommendations for our state system. And there is that expectation of, well, how do we act upon that? Gateway Bike Plan, our district engineer at Haskinger said, we will act upon this. And we're able done that, but now the standard is shifting. And so there is still that focus on, well, how do we work with these local governments on implementation, regardless of where the funds are coming from. And so our task is becoming even more so. And that plan will not be alone. GRG's funds will also be used to develop lower stress network recommendations for St. Louis City and St. Charles County, which will include MoDOT systems. So this isn't just our story of the past. This is also hopefully to inform us and equip us with knowing our story and the tools in our toolbox. So as we move forward on implementation with these municipalities and counties and GRG for the future.
Other questions for Sean?
Hey, Sean, it's Michelle. You knew I couldn't stay too silent that's this long, but I think just to piggyback on, I think the area teams and asset management can take opportunities as those projects come into the pipeline to be looking at what's next. I also don't think that the Gateway Bike Plan is the end all, recommendation, right? The team should be looking at what's next, what are the less stress facilities, and working with the partners and taking those opportunities to make sure we've got the best experience out there for those users.
Right, that planning is more high level and looks more at the conceptual level, but not necessarily that the actual perfect solutions that we MoDOT need to work with the locals to further refine that through the engineering process. But we generally start with that planning process first to start working towards, well, what should we do? Thank you, Michelle.
Hey, Sean, I'll ask you a question. Maybe this will get the crowd stirred up in our final minutes. We'll see. What is our maintenance policy state about maintaining these assets?
Can I punt that one?
I don't know. You're pretty knowledgeable. I thought you might know the answer. Does anybody else know the answer? Does anybody know? I didn't see Bob and Arissa on here. I didn't see too many of our superintendents on here. But once we build this beautiful thing, what do we do to maintain it?
I guess I should emphasize that that's still something that needs to be worked out. And in many cases, that's worked out individually with cities and counties and GRG and others like GRG, that we work out that maintenance through agreements, and that is an ongoing discussion because, right, this is adding more things to maintain to our system. And I think we still have more to do to figure out that maintenance side of the house of what do we do with this, whose responsibility, and what are the details, especially when it comes to funding.
Other questions for Sean? Michelle Kratzker, you joined us from our multimodal division. Do you have any comments or anything that you want to share?
No, I absolutely appreciate the engagement and just the concept of making sure active transportation and all modes of transportation are a consideration, not just at the planning stage, but all levels of transportation, so we can have an integrated system. So thank you for your work, for your leadership, and Sean, certainly for your passion. It's much appreciated, and I think it's making us all better.
And thank you for your division's resources to help make this possible. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, any final questions, dying questions you want to get out there that you want to ask Sean or any of us in this format?
I think I see one in the chat.
So Denise is asking, is there a possibility to do a citywide agreement when it comes to sidewalk maintenance? Or countywide or a, regional or something, you could take it beyond city. I'll let Sean dive at an answer to that. Is it possible to do a citywide or countywide agreement for sidewalk maintenance?
It sounds like you're all giving me new homework. Generally, our agreements, I believe, are done by CCO, at least that they help guide us. So, like, we're going to add a new agreement type. I think we have to do some homework and work with CCO to figure out those details.
Well, the beyond the CCO legality aspect of it, it really gets into a lot of our local partners know that roads and sidewalks and stuff don't take care of themselves, so they're ongoing daily or regular routine maintenance operations, as well as you have to reconstruct it. You have to keep investing in it. So it's difficult for other forms of government even to keep up with all the assets that they're responsible for. So any additional assets for us to ask them, even if we had a good legally CCO agreed with the agreement, that I think the challenge is going to be our partners. Not most of our partners aren't able to just easily take on additional cost and responsibilities. You do have a comment from Leslie Hoforth. I'm glad to see Leslie's joining us, and she said a great presentation. So great job, Sean. So any other final closing comments or questions for Sean? All right, I thank you all for joining our October 2020 Lunch and Learn. If you have Lunch and Learn topics, feel free to get them to me. If you think they're very valuable, whether they're internal MoDOT or they're some of our partners that reach out to speak to us. This is a great format. I want to keep it going, even as we go through the coming months of possibly still not being able to be together in room 160. Hopefully we'll get back there safely soon as we possibly can. In the meantime, we'll do virtual Lunch and Learns and everything. So again, I've captured most of your names. I think I got them to Michelle Patterson. She should be emailing you PDH certificates. If you don't get one by the end of the week, feel free to email Michelle Patterson and she'll get you a PDH certificate for today. And thank you, Sean Tooley, for all the great work that you did and your partners to put together that very factually based and very informative presentation about active transportation on MoDOT right away.
Thank you all.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.